There are stories that seem to dive into a world where the impossible takes shape and dark secrets wait to be discovered. Have you ever heard of the witches in the house across the street? Those silent beings who watch without blinking, as if they know every secret hidden in the darkness. In this video, you'll venture into the shadows and uncover what few dare to share, the legends of witches and haunted houses that withstand time, filled with mysteries that send shivers even down the spines of the most skeptical. But be warned, by the end, you might wonder if the terror lies only in the stories, or if something is truly watching from where you least expect it. The night falls, and with it, October's heavy air seems to bring more than just a chill. In a place where the mist dances under the pale moonlight, you feel an inescapable sense of unease. A thick atmosphere envelops the viewer, as if even the air around is loaded with ancient, forgotten secrets. Stories of witches and haunted houses intertwine with memories that almost feel real, as if terror is always lurking, watching from the shadows. Those who dare dive into this narrative of mysteries and supernatural legends might find something unexpected, a chill down their spine that refuses to fade away. October is the month when tales of terror take on a life of their own. In this episode, the audience is invited to embark on a dark journey where stories of witches, inexplicable events, and the terror of a haunted house come to life. With each story told, the words seem to form images that linger over the listener, transporting them to a world where the supernatural is not just a possibility, but a threatening reality, an irresistible invitation to the unknown, where every sound and every shadow could be a prelude to something evil watching in silence, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. In this setting, it's impossible not to feel the presence of witches and their mysterious legends, as they hide in every muffled sound, in every shadow moving through the night. It's a journey through stories that mix terror with the unexplainable, revealing the darkest parts of abandoned houses, dark corridors, and the unsettling silence of an apparently haunted house. Like a spell cast over the environment, the very air seems to whisper secrets the witches left long ago. The viewer, captured by the sinister atmosphere, may feel a cold touch, like an invisible hand, a witch welcoming them into her territory. Haunted houses, so popular in horror legends, aren't just old. Empty buildings, they hold stories of lives gone but somehow still lingering, trapped between walls, as if the space itself retains the past. Stories of witches whispering their spells, children appearing at the end of long, dark hallways, and shadows moving inexplicably emerge as ghosts in these stories. Here, terror doesn't scream, it whispers, allowing the viewer to almost touch the fear before it fades into the twilight, as if mocking their bravery. There is an intensity in the details that brings the narrative to life. The silence of a room, interrupted only by a creaking door. The whisper of the wind that almost seems to carry ancient, distant words. The description becomes vivid, making the viewer see, feel, and even smell the old dust covering every forgotten piece of furniture. In a haunted house, every dark corner is an abyss of possibilities where anything could appear at any moment. A witch, perhaps, disguised as a shadow, waiting to confront those who dare invade her space. With each step, curiosity and fear walk hand in hand, sparking the flame of terror. Witches, legendary creatures of horror stories, intertwine with reality to the point of becoming part of it. A haunted house that holds memories from the shadows seems almost alive, vibrating with evil energy accumulated over generations. When the door creaks, when the wind taps against a window, the visitor can't help but wonder if there's something more, someone or something watching closely. This deeply rooted, almost tangible terror is what makes the stories told. It's as if each legend about witches and haunted houses comes to life, offering the audience an experience that goes beyond the imagination. In this scenario, the supernatural doesn't present itself explicitly, it insinuates itself in small, almost imperceptible details that make the heart race. A slight breeze, a shadow that seems to move when no one is directly looking. This invitation to the sensation of controlled fear, where the viewer knows they're safe yet still feels threatened, is what fuels the tension and keeps the gaze fixed, perhaps waiting for the unexpected to emerge. For those who enjoy horror, who like to feel the adrenaline rushing through their veins while exploring a dark narrative, this is an experience that won't disappoint. A stroll through the unexplainable, where each detail is carefully crafted to intensify fear and suspense. The atmosphere of a haunted house, paired with the mystery of witches and their legends, is like an invisible trap, drawing in and ensnaring those who dare dive into the unknown. With their heart beating faster with each word, the audience might wonder, just how far will this feeling take them? Imagine a house, solitary and imposing, hiding within its walls the weight of a disturbing story. It's not just any building. This luxurious mansion, abandoned over time, seems to exude a supernatural aura. In every detail of the structure, in the dusty windows and worn wooden doors, there's a silent reminder of what happened there. And the most unsettling part, they say a child haunts its corridors like a lost shadow. The inexplicable presence of this child's spirit both attracts and repels the few who dare set foot inside. One night, the narrator feels inexplicably drawn to the house, as if something is calling to him. As he passes through the main door, the air grows heavier, charged with a seemingly living energy. The first step echoes down the empty hall, breaking the tomb-like silence. As he ventures further, a sense of discomfort grows, as though thousands of invisible eyes are watching him. That's when he sees the small shadow of a child, standing at the end of the hallway, staring at him. Could it be the presence of an ancient witch, disguised as innocence, just waiting to reveal its true terror? With every move, the narrator feels as if the house is responding, as if it has a mind of its own. Whispers resound from the walls, unintelligible words filled with a profound sadness. The child remains still, yet her gaze seems to follow the visitor's every step. In a moment of bravery, he tries to approach, but a cold wind cuts through the room, stopping him in his tracks. The house, like a living creature, seems to guard its secret, trapping all who dare to invade it in a cycle of fear and curiosity. Who or what is this child? And why does she seem like a guardian of this place? He tries to ignore the terror he feels and moves closer, but the shadow vanishes as if it were never there. Now, alone in the empty hall, he realizes the mansion holds something far darker than he ever imagined. Every old piece of furniture seems to carry a heavy energy, and the walls, with cracks spreading like scars, whisper stories of pain and despair. It's as if the house wants to show him glimpses of a lost past, a time when witches made this place the scene of forbidden rituals and promises that echo to this day. The narrator continues exploring the house, each room a new discovery, each step taking him deeper into an atmosphere of pure terror. In the ancient rooms, he finds dusty dolls and forgotten toys, as if the child still lived there. But the most terrifying thing is the expression on the faces of these dolls, deformed with empty eyes that seem to hold something evil. He realizes he's not just in a haunted house. He's in a place where terror is intrinsic, where memories seem to manifest physically. A witch, inhabiting the invisible perhaps, is watching him. Upon reaching the upper floor, the tension is almost unbearable. The long, dark corridor is illuminated only by a sliver of moonlight passing through dusty windows, casting shadows that dance along the walls. It's then that he sees her again, the ghostly child standing in the center of the hallway, unmoving, almost daring him to approach. The narrator feels an intense chill running down his spine, a sensation that mixes fear and fascination. Could this child be a manifestation of an ancient witch, or something even more terrifying? Indissolubly linked to the space itself, each step toward the figure of the ghost child is a test of courage. The narrator feels as if he's being drawn into an abyss, a presence whispering his name, echoing through the empty hallway. With each step, the air grows denser, heavier, and the shadows around him take on indistinct shapes. As if something were about to emerge from them, the child watches him, silent and unmoving, until a muffled laugh fills the air. Could this laugh be a memory from past times, where witches manipulated fear to protect their secrets? Suddenly, the child's figure disappears, and the narrator finds himself alone, his heart pounding and the feeling that something is following him. The house, once silent, now seems to whisper, each wall a keeper of ancient, macabre secrets. He realizes this mansion is not merely haunted. It's a place where terror has been perpetuated, a house that absorbed the fear of everyone who passed through and now comes alive with every story told. Could this child be just bait? An illusion created by a witch to trap those who dare to unravel the mysteries of the place on a seemingly ordinary flight. A flight attendant encounters a passenger exuding charisma and power. Santiago, with his impeccable appearance and slight smile, he seems charming at first glance. But something in his eyes gives her chills, as if hiding dark intention. He invites her to an event at his mansion, claiming it's just a gathering of friends. However, there's something in his voice that sounds more like a command than an invitation. She feels that refusing would be improper, but accepting awakens a sense of caution, as if stepping into unknown, dangerous territory. Upon arriving at the mansion, the flight attendant is greeted by an impressive, grand, and mysterious structure, with details reminiscent of stories of witches and ancient magic. The night is dense and windless, and the house seems isolated from everything. Surrounded by dark trees and unsettling shadows, the door opens automatically and she steps in, feeling the air heavy, almost as if the house were alive. Santiago waits for her in the lobby, his penetrating gaze observing her intently, and a slightly menacing smile emerges on his face. She realizes she's not in an ordinary environment, and that something supernatural seems to emanate from this place. He guides her down long, cold hallways decorated with ancient paintings depicting scenes of terror and haunted houses. There's something disturbing about the way Santiago watches her, as if he knows secrets she doesn't. She senses the presence of something invisible, a terror that seems to whisper in the corridors as they walk by. Each room he shows appears darker than the last, as if holding memories of something dark and forbidden. Santiago leads her with a chilling calm, asking personal questions but revealing nothing about himself. Maintaining that penetrating and unsettling gaze, he leads her into a spacious living room, where silence reigns. Yet there's a pulsating energy in the air. Santiago sits and invites her to do the same, his voice now lower and more serious. She notices he's observing her in a strange way, almost as if he's trying to read her thoughts. The sense of discomfort grows, and she feels a chill down her spine, a clear warning that something is very wrong. The atmosphere around shifts, and the shadows on the walls seem to move, creating shapes that resemble figures of witches. She begins to realize that Santiago's presence is more threatening than she imagined. The conversation takes an unusual turn, with Santiago questioning her beliefs about witches, haunted houses, and the supernatural. He challenges her, almost mocking her responses, and his voice, once soft, takes on a tone of sarcasm and mystery. With each word, the flight attendant feels he's trying to manipulate her thoughts. As if hypnotizing her, she begins to feel a slight dizziness, a sensation of vulnerability. The environment around seems to transform, and she finds herself increasingly trapped by his gaze, unable to look away, as if something inside Santiago is pulling her into an abyss. She tries to regain composure, but feels control slipping from her grasp. Santiago stands and walks around the room, never stopping his watchful gaze like a predator analyzing its prey. His presence surrounds her, and she feels as though she's being sucked into an invisible force. A muffled sound of footsteps echoes through the corridors, yet no one is there. Santiago approaches again and extends his hand. Offering her a drink, she hesitates, sensing that accepting could bind her further to this place. Everything in her screams to leave, but Santiago's dark magnetism seems to block any attempt at escape. When she refuses the drink, Santiago's smile fades, and his expression becomes cold and severe. He watches her for a long moment. As if judging her decision, the silence between the two becomes unbearable, and she realizes she may have crossed an invisible boundary. Santiago stands again, but now there's something different in his gaze. A coldness he once tried to conceal. The shadows around seem to intensify, creating menacing form. As if the house itself were under Santiago's command. She knows she needs to leave, but the path to the door seems longer and darker than before. As she finally says goodbye and tries to leave, something holds her back, a force she can't explain. Santiago watches her, standing at the entrance, his cold and penetrating gaze following her to the end. She finally escapes the house, but the sense of terror remains, as if part of her is still inside, imprisoned. From a distance, she looks back at the mansion as its lights go out, plunging it into darkness. The experience has left a deep mark on her, and as she looks back, she wonders, what or who? Is Santiago really? And why does she feel that he's still watching her, even from afar? The narrator's grandmother always spoke of the three elderly women who lived in the house across the street, an old wooden structure with small windows that seemed to stifle any sign of life inside, to the neighborhood residents. These women were more than simple old ladies. They seemed like figures from a legend, eternally shrouded in mystery. They were only seen at night, sitting on the porch, always silent, but with gazes that froze anyone who dared look at them. Something about them was deeply unsettling, as if they carried the secret of a forgotten era where witches and haunted houses ruled the shadows. Over the years, the grandmother witnessed inexplicable changes in the appearance of the elderly women. On certain nights, they looked younger, with smoother skin and more agile movements, as if some kind of spell was acting upon them. The grandmother recounted that on these occasions, the air around the house grew heavier and silent, as if even the birds avoided singing nearby. And in the days that followed, the front yard was filled with unfamiliar herbs, plants with a sweet, nauseating smell, reminiscent of potions from ancient witch legends. Something about that house seemed to pulse with a silent terror, always waiting for curious eyes. There was a consensus in the neighborhood that these three women were witches. They never had visitors, and no one saw them at local events or in any everyday situation. They were like specters inhabiting that haunted house, invisible during the day and visible only at nightfall. The neighborhood children were afraid to pass in front of the gate, and the adults avoided talking about them, fearing some kind of curse. Even those who didn't believe in witchcraft couldn't ignore the discomfort they felt when crossing gazes with those old women. It was a subtle terror, but incredibly present. One night, the grandmother was startled by a sound coming from the house across the street, a whisper, followed by low, disturbing laughter, as if someone were telling forbidden secrets. She looked out the window and saw the three old women standing in a circle in the garden, heads bowed, murmuring something incomprehensible. It was like a ritual, and the air around seemed to vibrate with an intense, almost suffocating energy. As she stepped away from the window, the grandmother felt a chill run down her spine. She knew she had witnessed something she shouldn't have seen, as if those women carried the shadow of an era where terror and witches walked hand in hand. The next day, one of the neighborhood children fell suddenly ill. For no apparent reason, the grandmother couldn't shake the thought that the elderly women had something to do with it, although there was no logical explanation for such a notion. However, the coincidence was terrifying, and no one dared to question it. Over time, she began observing the three women more closely. Noticing subtle patterns in their actions, whenever they performed their nightly ritual, something inexplicable happened in the neighborhood. Animals disappeared, plants withered, and an uncomfortable silence dominated the streets. The haunted house seemed like an anchor for evil, and those women, guardians of that secret, the relationship between the elderly women and the grandmother, became a silent game of observation and fear. On one occasion, one of them gave her a direct look, a cold, penetrating gaze that made the grandmother feel as if her heart had stopped for a moment. She knew that look carried a message, a warning to keep her distance. But at the same time, an irresistible curiosity prevented her from ignoring what was happening in the house across the street. Each time she observed, she felt as though she was approaching an abyss, a mystery as old as the horror stories about witches and haunted houses. The older residents said that the three elderly women had lived in that house for decades, never aging or changing appearance. It was as if time had no power over them, as if they were trapped in some sort of spell. The grandmother, fascinated and frightened, began avoiding looking at the house, but always felt drawn to that dark and mysterious presence. It was impossible not to imagine what happened inside the dark walls of the haunted house, where witches could be conjuring secrets from the past and perpetuating the terror that seemed to emanate from that place. The grandmother's last memory of the elderly women was a silent night when the house across the street was completely dark. The three women had vanished, never to be seen again by anyone in the neighborhood. The house remained empty, but the terror they left behind seemed trapped there, like an invisible mark on the walls and dark hallways. Even without them, the feeling that something supernatural still inhabited the place lingered. The grandmother knew that somehow the presence of the old women continued there, a grim reminder that the unknown always holds one last secret. Horror stories, though they end, always leave a trace of uncertainty that refuses to disappear. Those tales of witches, haunted houses, and spectral figures don't end with a full stop, but with an unsettling silence. Remembering the events that were lived or told, the characters feel that the terror wasn't left entirely in the past. It's as if these mysteries persist in an invisible space, where past and present intertwine. Those who hear these stories can't avoid thinking that horror may be closer than it seems. Lurking in shadows we insist on ignoring. These stories have become a dark reminder that the world isn't made only of certainties and rational explanations. Some things simply escape our understanding, like a persistent echo we can't locate. Witches, haunted houses, shadows appearing without explanation. All of these seem to be part of a parallel reality that only touches our world in moments of distraction. Those who have lived these experiences bear the invisible mark of fear, and even if they try to forget, these mysteries always find a way to be remembered. For many, ignoring these accounts is a way of staying sane, of keeping fear at bay. However, there's something in stories of witches and haunted houses that seems to instigate a morbid curiosity. Are these events merely products of the imagination, or do they hide truths about what lies beyond our understanding? The audience is invited to ponder this, letting a subtle sense of unease grow. Perhaps deep down, everyone knows these stories have something real, something that insists on remaining. Like a trace of the unexplainable, the mysteries surrounding the supernatural have always challenged our logic and, ultimately, our control over the world. No matter how much we try to explain terror, it finds ways to infiltrate, leaving a mark on our perception. Witches, haunted houses, and ghostly figures seem to exist in a separate dimension. Where fear and fascination mix, those brave enough to look into the unknown eventually discover that these mysteries aren't just stories, but echoes of something greater, something that insists on existing in the cracks of reality. The stories told so far leave an indelible mark on the imagination of those who hear them. A seed of doubt growing in every dark corner. Who could say for sure that encounters with the supernatural were just illusions? When we look at an old house or an isolated forest, we feel an inexplicable chill, a sense that something is watching. It's this persistent doubt that keeps these legends alive, turning terror into something deeper, a constant presence that seems to whisper in every silence, in the shadows that haunt lonely nights. Even though the modern world tries to push these beliefs aside, the fascination with the unexplainable remains. Stories of terror, witches, and haunted houses have survived the ages, adapting but never losing the power to unsettle. After all, humans are attracted to the unknown, to the possibility that something magical and terrifying may be closer than we imagine. These tales are not merely entertainment. They're a reminder that forces beyond our control exist, forces that, every now and then, find a crack to manifest, whether in a dark corner or in a night's whisper. And so fear perpetuates, like a living entity that feeds on human memories and uncertainties. The haunted house, the witches, the inexplicable encounters, all of these form a puzzle whose pieces never quite fit together. Every story told carries a fragment of truth, a clue that something eludes us. Those who believe, or at least allow themselves to question conventional reality, end up realizing that terror isn't just an emotion, but a door to a dimension where the impossible becomes possible and where mysteries persist, indifferent to our understanding. Finally, the stories close without really ending. The audience feels the lingering chill, the sense that maybe there's something more in the shadows around. These legends about witches and haunted houses aren't just tales, but experiences that touch the deepest part of the human being. The fear of the unknown. What remains is the memory and the implicit invitation to explore the unexplainable. Who knows? Maybe one day these mysteries will reveal their true faces. Until then, curiosity and fear will keep the flame of these stories alive, like a shadow that never fully dissipates. The shadows and mysteries in these stories don't vanish when they end. In fact, perhaps they're just waiting to reveal themselves in ways you'd never imagined. Have you ever wondered how many legends about witches, haunted houses, and supernatural presences could still be alive around us? Would you have the courage to explore a place where the unexplainable feels so real? Leave your supernatural experience in the comments. Maybe others can find answers in your stories, and to keep uncovering these mysteries, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Don't let the next mystery slip by unnoticed.